would you have burned the city down? I don't know.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another issue of Hops Geek News. We are a podcast that discusses comic books, movies, TV shows, and we have a beer of the week every single week. First things first, if you're new to the show, thanks for joining us. You can find us by searching Hops News on all of your podcasting platforms. Go ahead, go to our social media accounts, Hops Geek News. There's also bio links and link trees there that you can follow for our TikToks, our Instagram, our merch, our episodes, all of that good stuff, our individual Twitter accounts, the things that we're doing really, really well. Lauren's putting out a lot of great Disney content on TikTok. I'm writing for bamsmackpow.com and dorksideoftheforest.com. Go ahead, check all of those out. Today, we are going to talk about a very, very controversial topic. Game of Thrones, as we all know, is coming back with House of the Dragon. It's pretty controversial. So House of the Dragon is coming back August 21st. Matt Smith is going to be headlining this. And yeah, so before we get all to that, my beer of this week is Busy as Daggy, which is a 6% ABV sour ale brewed with blackcurrant, blueberry, and mangoes. It is originally from Tripping Animals. However, it is a collaboration with our amigos from Deciduous Brewing Company, which is funny enough out of Newmarket, New Hampshire, my old stomping grounds, as you might know. It's pretty thick, pretty strong, really good. Got a lot of flavors, kind of smacks you over the head with, but mighty good, as all Tripping Animals and Deciduous Brewing beers are. So, Lauren, what are you drinking this week?
I am also drinking a sour. So I am just popped open a sour ale brewed with toasted marshmallows and raspberries with lactose at 8.1%. It's from Main and Mill Brewing in Des Moines, Iowa, West Des Moines, Iowa. So I got this as an Ian beer.
Wow, what?
And I went with this one tonight because it's called Don't Cross the Streams. And I will be talking about a couple of my New York adventures this past weekend. And one of them was I got to see the Ghostbusters Firehouse. So I'll definitely post that picture on the Instagram. It's got the 4 original guys, crossing streams.
That's pretty awesome.
You're not supposed to. And I have it in my Buzz Lightyear glass because 5 minutes ago we had Lightyear on in the living room.
That's
and
right.
So that's just what I grabbed.
Lightyear is now streaming everywhere on Disney Plus.
Oh, this is very yummy.
And I figured we were just drinking sours because Game of Thrones left such a sour taste in our mouth, but I'll settle for just randomly picking sours tonight. It's all good. How was
Spoilers,
New York?
I didn't hate it as much as you did. But we're getting ready. We're going to have more than just a talking Game of Thrones. We're getting ready for House of Dragon. We're going to talk a little bit of why the Targaryens are so crazy.
Targaryens.
We'll talk a little bit of Game of Thrones fun facts. So we're going to talk all of it. And I will let Matt go on a tangent about why he hated the ending.
Yes. Good.
But first,
tell us, how was New York? What did you do? Where'd you go? What was the happenings?
It was fun. It was a lot. I think navigating the public transportation was probably the most difficult thing. So this was my 3rd time in New York, but first time without my husband. And I'm not the best with sense of direction. And it was just me and my 10-year-old. And oh my dear Lord, as soon as I got off, as soon as I walked out of the airport, I'm like, okay, I don't know where to go. And I wrote directions out on like literally notebook paper and had that. And I had Google Maps and I had Lyft downloaded and everything ready to go. And yeah, my daughter right away, she's like, oh, lost in New York.
Did you guys meet the pigeon lady?
We did see a pigeon lady. She was literally holding pigeons. She wasn't in Central Park, though. She was right by like Rockefeller Center area. And she was straight up holding pigeons, much younger than I expected. But no, it was, I kind of let her take charge. This was her birthday gift, and a hell of a birthday gift.
Wow, my parents took me to like a crack den Chuck E. Cheese if I was lucky for my birthday. I never got to go to New York.
No, me neither. The first time I went to New York, I was like 24.
Wow. I've never been to New York City, funny enough. That's crazy.
So you know how we had talked about doing a road trip this summer?
Oh, yeah.
And then my oldest was kind of like, well, I don't really care if I go. And then my husband's, really busy with work. And it was kind of like, all right, all you little assholes, I guess we're not doing this trip. And Brielle was bummed we didn't do New York. So that was my husband and I, he's like, why don't you just take her to New York and you two go? And it was a lot of fun because anybody who has multiple kids, getting to hang out with one kid one-on-one is such a different experience than having all your kids. They're different kids when they're alone.
Well, it's important for them too at the same time because when you have both your kids, it's always like it's always nice for them to get that preferential one-on-one treatment to just enjoy a day with mom or dad. It's awesome. I love doing it.
Yeah. And they're more likely to get spoiled because everything costs a third of the price to spoil them.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah.
So it's like she was happy to go to breweries because she knew she was going to get whatever the hell she wanted. So we did get we got 4 breweries in total, which I'm calling that a success considering, yeah.
I mean, all things considered, yeah.
I did other half. We did Coney Island Brewing, which is literally right next to Nathan's. And it's right there.
Did you get any glizzies?
I don't know what that is, so I'm going to go with no. What are glizzies? Is it appropriate?
No, we'll talk about it off the air.
Oh, it's that bad. Damn. And then we did Flagship Brewing, which was in Staten Island, which was the Staten Island Ferry. You can actually take that for free. Of course, you do run the risk that Peter Parker and Iron Man. Well, Peter Parker wrecks the boat or whatever. And then we got on a bus and went to a Staten Island brewery. And Staten Island is cheap compared to New York.
Were you the king of Staten Island? Did you see Pete Davidson running around?
No, but so my friend who lives in Manhattan was like our tour guide. And I asked her that. I go, so are we going to see like Pete Davidson when we get off the boat? Is he going to like greet us?
He's going to greet you. Not. No, there was no maid in Manhattan J-Lo at all either. That's crazy.
Nope. We did see a couple Minnie and Mickeys without their heads on. They didn't even have their heads on in Times Square.
They're taking smoke breaks.
But okay, so some of the geek stuff I did real quick. We did do the Stranger Things exhibit. A lot of fun. I did post a video of that on our TikTok if you want to get an idea of what it is. But there is the actual experience. They don't allow any recording, which I totally understand and get. But you're basically participating in a Hawkins sleep study. And then you kind of exit through the gift shop. And the gift shop has Surfer Boy Pizza. It has a bar where you can buy real beer called the Upside Down. It has a photo shoot where you can take a picture in Joyce's living room. It's got arcade games, Scoops Ahoy, some merchandise, a Demigorgon on the wall, a QR code you can scan for scavenger hunts. So that was pretty cool. And then we saw the Ghostbusters thing. And if you are in New York and you see Ice Cream Museum, it's not an actual ice cream museum. It is an ice cream themed playground with ice cream samples and then a fake sprinkle filled pool at the end. I will never go back there.
Oh, really?
My daughter loved it.
I mean, that sounds kind of awesome, but that sucks.
It's just, it wasn't a museum. It was, they had one poster that showed a couple of ice cream facts and it was just, it was a playground. I mean, it's great for the kids. It was not a museum. It was terrible.
That's tough. That's terrible.
But that was it. We had a great time, great trip. I did not read or watch anything. Well, I read some Brotherhood on the plane, but I'm almost done. Not done yet.
Yeah, I am struggle busting my way through Shadow of the Sith myself, but don't worry. I read or watched something for us this weekend.
Uh-oh. Do I want to know?
Yes. You kind of already know. So I went and saw DC's Super Pets. So my son has been talking about July 29th since he first saw the trailer like 5 months ago. And so we and the whole fam went to go see DC Super Pets. That movie should not have been as good as it was. I don't know how to explain. Like, I went in like, all right, yeah, it's going to be another Rock, Kevin Hart, bullcrap animated film.
How many movies have they done together?
I mean, they're like, the whole Adam Sandler crew. That's like modern day Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider crew. But this movie is great. It made me laugh a lot. There was a lot of really unexpected like Justice League showing up throughout the film, which was really cool. And
that's cool.
They did a really cool tag teaming, and the action sequences were great. There was never a point that you thought that it was Rock and Kevin Hart. Like, yeah, you can clearly tell it's their voices, but at no point did they do their usual shtick of the whole thing. Like, yeah, they like joked around back and forth, kind of like how Batman and Superman kind of would about powers and no powers. But
oh my God, they rag on each other in real interviews. They're hilarious together.
Yeah, they're great together, but they don't act like they're most movies. If you see them together, they're just like bashing on each other, that kind of stuff. Yeah. That wasn't this. Like, they equally play an important shining role in this film, and it was great. I honest to God loved this movie so much, and I hope people go out and see it, just because this is like the only good thing DC and Warner Brothers is able to give us these days. So it was great. I really.
What is wrong with them?
There was 2 post-credit scenes. One was already spoiled. It had Black Adam and his dog show up, and so like John Krasinski plays Superman. And then The Rock is obviously Crypto, but then The Rock was Black Adam, and The Rock was also playing the dog. So like he convinced, so that was cool. Kevin Hart really obviously played Ace, and then Keanu Reeves played Batman. But you got to see like a lot of the Justice League, so I thought it was really great, really clever. Lex Luthor was in it, a surprising amount too. So definitely the trailer doesn't show you what the movie actually was. So really recommend watching that. I read some comics again. I read Paper Girls, the first trade for Paper Girls, because the show is out on Hulu now, and I had no idea what it was about. It's like,
oh, is that why people were losing their mind? I didn't know
so
that.
it's out on Hulu now. And, Rob from Woodland Empire, he messaged me. He's like, dude, I saw your tweet. Like, Paper Girls is legit. And I was like, yeah, I just picked up the first trade. I read it, and it's about, girls delivering the paper. However, like some aliens show up, and there's some time travel involved, and like it's very
I was about to ask
sci-fi.
if it was like Newsies. No, it is not like Newsies. Then.
No, it is very sci-fi like, and the first trade was fantastic. I'm gonna have to pick up the others. I picked up the first issue of it to do a giveaway perhaps as well, so be on the lookout for that. I read the 3rd issue of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is a flashback to his time in the Clone Wars and how like he was, fighting the Clone Wars, really struggling as a Jedi. Basically, like, why are we fighting this war? It makes no sense. Like, I'm a Jedi. I'm not supposed to be a general. I'm not supposed to be doing any of this. I'm like a monk, basically. Why am I fighting in this war? There's like a lot of clone deaths, a lot of Jedi deaths in this series, this episode or issue, excuse me. So it's a heavy, 3rd issue. It's very heavy. So recommend picking that up. I was unable to grab Spider-Man issue 900 by our friend Dan Kibblesmith because it sold out. And even though I had it on my list to be in my box, I guess they didn't get enough copies in to fulfill all the orders and pre-orders. So I'm waiting on it to come in still. Haven't picked it up. So hopefully I can pick that up here soon. Been watching Only Murders in the Building. That show
I did watch that.
Oh, it continues to get better. I haven't watched the most recent episodes yet, but
I don't know when they come out, so I don't know if I
Tuesdays.
Oh, then I have not watched the most recent episode.
Where I left off, there's a big cliffhanger at the end of the episode that I was on. Really great show. Continues to just.
Did it involve the subway? That's the last thing I saw.
Yes, it involves Mabel on the subway in a video. So really,
that's the last I saw.
Great episode, great series. I highly recommend that. I can't wait to watch Prey on Friday, the new Predator film. We're going to go out on a date on Saturday, and we're going to go see Bullet Train. So look forward to talking about that next week. One? Yeah. Look forward to talking about that. And then I've watched Light and Magic because I wrote reviews for episodes 1, 3, and 6 for dorksideoftheforce.com. And
I need to watch
really great, really, really great series. It gives you an inside look about industrial light and magic, how they got started, how they basically shaped the way for, visual effects for what they are today. Like how everything got started with Star Wars, how they were just a group of misfits basically working on commercials. And then even one dude was working on Flesh Gordon at one point after filming the first movie before they got back together, and really good. They really go into depth about how Jurassic Park changed the game. Like Star Wars changed the game, but then Jurassic Park and how they blended visual effects with practical effects was unheard of. And just the massive monster that it is today. So you got to watch it. It was fantastic. 6 episodes, about an hour each. Really, really good stuff. So that's kind of all I've been reading or watching this.
Yeah, Disney Plus in general has some great behind the scenes stuff for the parks, for shows, for movies. Like, they've even been doing one for every Marvel show and Marvel movie lately.
Yeah. So speaking of Disney Plus, let's roll into some news before we talk to our main topic. So Disney Plus, there was a new trailer for Andor, which dropped on Good Morning America, and it turns out that they actually pushed the premiere to September 21st from August 31st, but we're getting 3 episodes. I'm cool with that. Kind of sucks that there's only 12 episodes in a season, so we're getting a fourth of the episodes all at once, but the show looks great. They shot
like
it.
The Boys.
Yeah, I mean, they shot it all on location, so they didn't use the volume sets. They didn't use all that craziness, and you get kind of a blend. Like everything looks dark and gritty, but at the same time, you're getting a look at the Galactic Senate, some really flashy parts of the Empire, and it starts 5 years before Rogue One. So, yeah, this is shaping up to be something pretty cool. Days of Our Lives. I know this is kind of silly to have news about Days of Our Lives. However, my grandma, my mom, they all watch this trash, soap opera, and it's actually ending its run on broadcast television after 57 years, and they're moving it to Peacock. So it's going to streaming.
Oh, so they're still going to have it.
Yeah, but I mean, how many old ladies who watch this show are going to leave cable because that's what they're accustomed to?
What do they call it? What's the name for soap opera? My soaps. Isn't that what it is? Like,
they watch
my
their
soaps or my shows. Yeah.
But how many old ladies or men, we're not here to discriminate, but how many of them are going to switch from watching it on cable NBC to go and getting a streaming network that they don't even know how to work,
Oh my gosh. I was watching some old guy try to figure out the self-checkout at the airport. Yeah.
It's hard. Like it's just the nature of the beast. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. And if Sammy is still the bad guy, I don't know. She was when I was a kid, but I couldn't tell you what's happening in this world anymore. So
the only person I know from that is Dr. Drake Ramore,
I remember
who Joey Tribbiani played and isn't a real person.
I just remember Sammy. It was always Sammy, that devilish bitch, Sammy. But we got some heavy news, man. Heavy news.
This is such bullshit.
Warner Brothers has decided to axe, kill, shelve Batgirl, which was starring Leslie Grace, Brendan Fraser, who was playing Firefly, J.K. Simmons, who was playing Commissioner Gordon, and Michael Keaton, who was coming back as Batman. They spent $90 million on this. It was completely done. And their new leadership has come in and said, nope, shelving it, cutting it. At first, there was reports that it was like irredeemable as far as the test screenings went. But a few months ago, test screenings were actually slightly positive on this. Not to mention, Morbius got 2 theater runs. You can't tell me this movie is worse than Morbius. So it's like,
yeah.
Sony's out here shooting stuff on broken down iPhone 3s and just uploading it to your closest IMAX theater. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers is never going to let a Batgirl movie see the light of day. I don't get it. And I just
I don't know.
A movie with Brendan Fraser, J.K. Simmons, Michael Keaton, nonetheless, is never going to see the light of day. It doesn't make sense.
I know. I mean, I'm not even a big DC, and this like made me angry. And I was looking forward to this, and it's like they're really taking this whole sunk cost thing to heart. It's like,
well, they're using it as a tax write-off to make some money back,
right? But has a movie this big with these big of headliners ever been scrapped like that? Like
not
that just
after
seems
it has
insane.
finished filming. This is unprecedented, which is also scary times, right? Like, think about all these studios who now could be like, okay, they did it. Maybe we can too with some of these films.
You're going to have actors, though, like less likely to want to do certain movies unless they have in their contract that they're like guaranteed certain things, I would think.
Actors, directors, because the directors from Miss Marvel actually did this movie. And so it's like you're going to have directors and people, not screenwriters, directors, actors. They're not going to want to work with Warner Brothers.
No, these poor people that worked on it must be gutted, because it's like you put your time and your energy and your heart and you make sacrifices, and I'm sure they're all getting paid. But for one, they're probably not getting paid as much. And two, you want to see this is art. You want to see your art completed.
And it's Batgirl. It's first of all, Leslie Grace is going to be the first Latina, to head. She's Batgirl, so that's already meaning a lot to somebody.
Batgirl was Alicia Silverstone. Come on.
Exactly. So not even that, but now I guess there's rumors that they're going to be cutting 70% of the HBO staff. They're looking at folding HBO Max into Discovery, and they're also talking about cutting out HBO Max and just moving on with HBO original television. So like, what does that mean for Blue Beetle? What does that mean for Harley Quinn? What does that mean for these other shows?
Patrol.
Doom Patrol. That, So
I'll be okay if they cancel Titans.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, like basically what's happening with DC as a total, because there are also rumors that they're going to be moving Shazam and Aquaman. So we already got trailers, and Shazam's supposed to be coming out December 21st. So what's going on? I don't really understand.
I wonder what DC fandom will be like.
Are they going to have a DC fandom? I who's to say anymore? You know?
Oh, it's a shit show.
It's a mess.
I feel terrible for the people involved, and yeah, I was looking forward to a badass girl movie.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't be that bad. I'm not convinced that it was that bad. No way.
Couldn't have been bad than the last Fantastic Four or Morbius.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Morbius got 2 theater runs, and Sony's out here putting these C-list and Spider-Man villains out here as a solo. We're getting a Madam Web film.
Maybe Michael Keaton stopped it. He's like, look, I already did Morbius this year. I can't have another movie come out that's terrible that I'm in. Yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, he was coming. Yeah, I don't know. It
makes no sense.
But Flash is still happening.
$300 million Flash movie still happening, so... Back to Marvel, though. Goodness. Some good news.
Oh, yes. Let's bring it back.
She-Hulk is going to be on August 18th now, premiering on Thursdays instead of August 17th on Wednesdays. I think they're doing that so that way we don't have an overlap with Andor when that kicks off, because She-Hulk will run until October when Andor kicks off the 21st of September. So we'll see.
Nice. Yeah, that's smart.
Shea Coulier, I hope I pronounced that right, from RuPaul's Drag Race has been cast in Ironheart. Carrie watches that show. I do not, but I know a lot of people are really excited about that. And that's also I think it's pretty cool still. Like the representation portion of it is really awesome. And Ryan Reynolds has allegedly started working on his Deadpool skills in body. So Deadpool 3 is coming, folks. Deadpool 3 is coming. Woohoo. She-Hulk's director, Kat Coiro, says that Daredevil is going to be a crowd favorite in She-Hulk. I mean, no kidding. Everybody loves Daredevil, so of course he's going to be a crowd favorite, right? And my last bit of news, Joker 2, October 4th, 2024. It will be set in Arkham Asylum. Again, we're getting a second Joker film, but we can't get a Batgirl film, so...
I wonder if it'll be like extra spooky or if it's just randomly releasing in October.
It's supposed to be a musical, and Lady Gaga is allegedly playing Harley Quinn.
That's right. I forgot.
we might have two different definitions of spooky, so I can assure you it's going to be spooky to one of us.
Oh, that's actually something I did this weekend. I saw Beetlejuice on Broadway. It was amazing. It was up there, I think, with Wicked and Lion King. I absolutely loved it. Yeah. It reminded me of Deadpool too, because he breaks the fourth wall the whole thing. So if you're headed to New York, and it's one of the cheaper musicals too, because I feel like it's fairly new, so a lot of people aren't like, let's go see Beetlejuice. I loved it. The 10-year-old loved it. It was phenomenal.
That's awesome.
And hilarious. The whole thing is hilarious. They break away from the movie quite a bit, but not too much. And yeah, you're laughing the whole time. Well, and you hear Michael Keaton's voice at one point. At one point, he pretends to be a ventriloquist and like throw his voice, and it sounded just like Michael Keaton from the movie. So I'm pretty sure it was.
Weren't they doing a Beetlejuice 2 with Michael Keaton at one point?
I think they are working on a Beetlejuice 2, yeah. And Winona Ryder is supposed to come back too.
Oh, really? Is that still happening?
As far as I know, last I saw, I can look it up real quick and see.
Huh. Okay.
But I guess the Beetlejuice started shortly before COVID and then had to shut down because of COVID, and then they couldn't pay their rent and whatnot. And I like that I Google Beetlejuice and the guy from Howard Stern comes up. It looks like it's still happening. Directed Tim Burton, music Danny Elfman, shocker.
Okay. Interesting.
Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder. Oh, and Johnny Depp.
Interesting. Johnny Depp's in it?
Apparently.
Okay. Well,
that's what's looking. I can look more into that is to make sure, because it doesn't look like anything recently has been posted about it. The last thing I see right now is February 2022.
Interesting. Well, what other news do you have?
So since we're talking Game of Thrones, I got a random email and figured I would share this news. If you are still big into Game of Thrones and you are anywhere near the LA area or going to be around December 9th to 11th of this year, they're having a Game of Thrones official fan convention, and it's going to have Jon Snow, Theon Greyjoy, Joffrey Baratheon, Tormund Giantsbane, Hodor, Podrick Payne, Yara Greyjoy, and Bran Stark. And, they always end up, dropping people and adding
Who
people
has
at
a
the same
better
time.
story?
Then Bran the Broken. That's what I like to me as Tyrion. All right, this will officially be the last season of The Flash. It is ending with a 13-episode season 9 that will start in September and end in 2023. This makes me want to go and I think I will catch up once it's completely done. Or hell, maybe I'll catch up before and watch it live. I really liked that show, and it kind of made me sad that I got a little bored with it.
Well,
and The Flash is what got me really into more so into the DC universe, other than just casually watching the movies.
This marks the end. This is the death of the Arrowverse. This is officially the end of the Arrowverse with Flash ending, because Supergirl was done, Arrow is done, Legends is done, and so your original core shows, which are over 900 episodes total, Flash, all of them are now done. So it kind of feels like a friend just died in a way, because there was a time where we would camp in front of our TVs premiere night to watch Arrow, Flash, all these shows.
Every single night, too. Monday through Thursday, there was a new show for a while.
And you'd be hyped and everyone would be talking about it. I remember being in the subreddits. Mm-hmm. And so it sucks. DC is just dead. DC's dead.
I think Tim's actually the one that had mentioned, you should watch Flash. And then when I started Flash, I was like, oh, now I got to go back and watch this Arrow show.
Stephen Amell will be at FanX. So will Emily Bett Rickards. So,
woohoo! What is it? Olicity?
Oh boy, we move on.
Alien TV series is coming, and they will be shooting next year. Jamie Lee Curtis has been cast as Madame Leota in The Haunted Mansion, and I have a quick fun fact about this. I think I've mentioned this on a previous episode, but when they overlay the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland and they have to redo Madame Leota, it's actually the original Madame Leota's daughter. So she does the voice and everything. So that's a nice little nod that they had her come in to replace her mom for Nightmare. And then it goes back to the mom who has since passed as Madame Leota the rest of the year. And what's funny is when I watched a documentary with this, the woman was talking about when they go to Disneyland and they're on the ride, she'll be like, oh, look, guys, it's grandma. And people will be like, what? So that's my fun fact.
Jared
and then
Leto.
You said Jared Leto was cast too?
He's cast. I don't remember or care enough about him to look up again who he's playing, but he has been cast in this movie as well, because I don't know why we are continuously casting this man in anything.
Probably because it's creating hype from just I don't know, talking about him.
I don't know. Apparently.
Yeah, he has been on a lot of stuff. I feel like he was dormant for years.
Go back to it.
It just says he joins it. I don't see what his role is.
Go back to it. Go back to being dormant. Shoo.
Wasn't he originally big from Party of Five or something?
Maroon. No, not Maroon 5. Okay. 30 Seconds to Mars. Sorry.
Okay. Roadhouse is doing a remake, and they are having Jake Gyllenhaal play the Patrick Swayze role. And then this last one. So the Spirit Halloween movie officially has a trailer, and it is coming out on October 11th on demand.
Yet. That's a real thing. That's not a fake.
I watched the trailer. I mean, it looks like it's real. Christopher Lloyd is in it, but this looks very cheesy. I don't think it's going to be very scary. It seemed more like a Goosebumps movie, but not as scary as a Goosebumps movie. But basically the kids, per the trailer, they sneak into Spirit. Well, they go into Spirit and then they hide so that they can sleep overnight. And then apparently shit goes berserk.
Oh, I'm in the bag. We're 2 months from October. You realize this? October is here. Pumpkin Spice comes out this month. Pumpkin beers are on shelves.
For Starbucks, though, sometimes it's not till the first week in September.
It is August 30th. Trust that. Trust that. It's August 30th. All right. Pump the brakes.
I'm not going to pretend I'm not excited. I love me some Starbucks.
I saw you in that scarf over the weekend. Yeah, you're excited.
Well, okay. So that was the other thing I did that I forgot to mention. So there's a Beetle house. If you're into Tim Burton stuff, there's a Beetle house in LA, London, or was it LA, DC, and New York. And I forgot about it. So we were like, okay, let's go check it out. It's in New York. If you have a reservation, it's $55 for a flat 3-course meal. And you can bring kids into that. But if you don't have a reservation, you can just do bar service. Well, we went to just walk in and they stopped us because I had my 10-year-old. And then I was like, well, can we get drinks and sit outside? And the bartender's like, yeah, that's fine. And I had another friend with me. So she sat outside while I got, drinks. And she goes, I'll send Jack out. And I was like, all right. And while I'm ordering a drink, I'm hearing, what's this? What's this? I can't believe my eyes. I'm starting to lose my mind. And the whole walls are decorated. I did post some pictures on our Instagram and on my personal TikTok, the Hoppy Mommy. And it was so amazing. I mean, there was Jack stuff everywhere. And then this guy comes out dressed as Jack and probably sat with us for a good 20 or 30 minutes. He was amazing. And he would stop and talk to other people. He scared the crap out of some huge guy just randomly walking by. He just like turned around and he's like, hello. And the guy's like, ah. But he had like really long fingers. It looked like it was Freddy Krueger fingers painted white.
That's creepy.
And so I had brought my Jack scarf for the Beetlejuice show because I don't own anything Beetlejuice. So, and Jack does make a cameo in the Beetlejuice movie on the big table. There's actually a miniature Jack. So yeah, my daughter had a Jack shirt on too. And he was just so sweet. And he talked to us about the Disneyland ride. He talked to us about the movie. And we told him, oh yeah, we saw you at Disneyland a few years ago. And then my husband FaceTimed me while we were there. And he talked to Logan on FaceTime. And he remembered, he goes,
awesome.
Hi, Logan. Do you remember me from Disneyland? And Logan goes, oh, Jack Skellington's real. It was a magical moment.
That is
okay. I'm off on my other tangent.
That's honestly awesome because that cast member very easily could have been like, you know, screw that. I don't have any obligation. Like, let me go out there and just kind of, you know, do my hey, whatever. That person inside that suit was dedicated. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of those feel good things that, you know, your kids will probably remember randomly. Like, do you remember this? And I don't know. I love stuff like that because it didn't have to be that nice. So I don't know. That's just really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I tipped him, but I feel like, and when I went in to pay my tab, I was like, he was amazing. Like, thank you so much for sending him out there. And then I started following their Instagram, and I guess they also will have Edward Scissorhands come out. And so they'll do other characters. And well, I had heard about it because it was on a special. I think it's on Disney Plus, the making of like, it's like the prop one they had, and they talked about some of the nightmare props. And I believe the one in LA has some of the nightmare props from the actual movie. Cause you know, since it's stop motion, that whole thing was a set. But I mean, this was a very unexpected thing. It was kind of like, oh, let's check it out. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get in. And Brielle was able to go to the bathroom. So she got to see everything in there still. So that was
I wonder
nice,
if I can stop there. Cause we're flying into LA in 3 weeks when we go to Disneyland. So
yes, definitely look into it because I learned about it after we were in LA and then I was like bummed, but do check the hours because sometimes they have like weird hours or they're not open a certain time and you know, all that crap you got to check when you travel somewhere.
For sure. Well, I also want to check out the Scum and Villainy Cantina, but we shall. Let's go on to our main topic, Game of Thrones. So we will be right back.
How far are we?
About a week, I think.
You think? You don't know?
When we went to Castle Black, we took the King's Road. I know you won't hurt me.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I do know some things.
All right. Well, as you all know, House of Dragon will be premiering on HBO August 21st. There will be 10 episodes. This is going to be a prequel to the show. It's the story of the Targaryens' civil war that took place about 200 to 300 years before the events portrayed in Game of Thrones. This civil war is referred to as Dance of Dragons. The show will star Emma Darcy, Mr. Darcy, Matt Smith, Patty Considine, and others. The series is based on the book Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin that came out in 2018. So pump the brakes. This man had time to write a prequel, but he can't finish the Game of Thrones books.
It's infuriating. I only read the first one because I was like, well, I don't want to read any more until he finishes them. And the first one is exact to the season one. My daughter did read, I think she read 4 of them, and she said it does start to veer off halfway through the second one. But still, you're not going to get any, I mean, I feel like this guy's going to die before he finishes the books.
That's crazy. That is crazy. So that man's never going to finish I think it's safe to assume that man is never going to finish the books at this point, right? Like he's just not going to do it. I don't think
I've heard they're still worth watching or worth reading. I just don't have it in me to make the commit. If he can't commit, then I don't want to commit.
Well, that's how I feel. Like I'm not going to read these books just to be sitting around like, okay, what happens next? What happens next? Because I'm not convinced he knows how to finish these books. I don't know that he does. So
I will say, if you read the books before the show, like kudos to you, because being able to picture each of the many various characters in my head, because I watched season 1 before I read the book. And if I didn't have like legit faces to go with these names, I feel like I would have been very confused.
Even when I was watching the show, which we'll get into in a minute, I always found it hard to like keep up with the who's who for a while. So when did you first start watching Game of Thrones though? Did you catch it from like the very first episode on?
No, I got into it. Might have been, I think the Red Wedding might have already happened because I knew about the Red Wedding before I saw it. So it was one of those shows like, it didn't look like something I would like. I've never been big into like the medieval stuff or dragons or, you know, the sci-fi I had always enjoyed was just like superhero crap. And, like I don't even think I was into Doctor Who at the time. And I had multiple people recommend it. And they were people that weren't into sci-fi stuff. And they're like, no, this is different. You should give it a try. And so I think my brother-in-law got me, you know, season 1, and my father-in-law told me about Ned Stark when I had 1 episode left. It's the same person who ruined Han Solo for me in another movie.
My God.
Yeah, rough. Now I don't ever talk to him about anything if he's seen it and I haven't. I literally walk away.
Just the wall.
Exactly.
Nothing new. No.
Nothing you haven't seen.
That's
but yeah, so I got into it a bit later. How about you?
I did the same. I think I picked it up the season after the Red Wedding. So Charlie, who has been on our show before, him and I became friends when we were both living in Florida at the time. And he was like, "Hey, have you ever watched Game of Thrones?" He was super into it and everything. And I was like, I just never got to it. Like I knew Ned Stark had died. I knew all that. I just didn't care. But then I was like, all right, we used to go to his dorm room and back when we were in the dorms, because in the Air Force, you know, when you're first starting out, you get to put in dorms, even though we were both mid-20s men. And we would just drink and watch Game of Thrones. And it was, I was like, shit, nothing else to do. Might as well. So we would just drink and watch Game of Thrones. And that was our thing. And I got hooked. I mean, yeah. And then obviously when the Red Wedding happened, I was drunk and I like yelled out like, "What the hell?" I was like, "What the fuck just happened?" He was like,
you had no clue about it?
I had no clue about I knew about Ned Stark. I didn't know about the Red Wedding, but Charlie obviously did because he had seen them all up that point. So he was like waiting. And I was like so mind blown that something like this could happen. And I was hooked even more at that point. So then we made it a point I would go over to his house on Sunday nights and we would watch them as they would air. And then eventually Carrie and I would watch them together and we'd watch season 7 and then obviously season 8. And it just, there's all the theories that were going around, this ties in with this. And it was like a time to be alive on Reddit. People were theorizing about everything. And then,
God, people used to drive themselves nuts.
It was worse than the Mephisto. Like, take Mephisto and turn that shit up to like a 15 because people were just like, this person's this, and I think this person does that. None of us could have guessed what actually, like, once D&D got the bag from Netflix, they were like, I'm out. Like, screw this show. The quality dips after season 6. Like, season 7's doable. Season 8 was just a continuous spit in the face of everybody. And I know some people... That
was like such an expensive season too.
Well, they had all the CGI because they got all the dragons and all this other stuff. But I know people were like, oh, it's not that bad, this or that. And I know some people watched it after the fact. Like they didn't watch it live. They don't, they watched everything. They binged it all at once. So I could see how it's not that bad to somebody like that. But to build yourself up in this hype...
2 years.
Well, yeah. And then you got these characters, right? Who you were teasing the Night King and Jon Snow really hard. You were teasing Jon Snow's lineage really hard. But did you not yell when the Night King got stabbed? Because I yelled. I was pissed. I was like, I yelled a mad yell.
I was like, oh, see, mine wasn't a bad yell. Mine was like a legit, like, I did not see that coming.
First of all, nobody did. Second of all, nobody saw anything in that episode because it was pitch
my God,
black.
I know. We had the subtitles on, and anytime I saw like that it said somebody said something, I'm like, oh, good, they're still alive.
Well, like, it makes, okay,
literally
their whole entire battle plan was shit. Like, you send your strongest warriors off into the dark,
And then you send your weakest into a crypt full of dead people when zombies are around.
And then like Sam is just falling around and he should have died 12 times. And like poor Jorah out there simping his way for Daenerys and die. Like,
oh, that was, I think, a tough death. I really always liked him.
but it was really awesome. Like Jamie
didn't really
comes,
get his thing. Like she looked at him like a father figure.
yeah, and he was like, I loved you, blah, blah, blah. But like,
I love you.
Jamie comes back to fight for Winterfell, and like this whole thing is teased up, and then it just kind of like Theon's death was sad, and then Arya jumps up out of fucking the portal, like a sling ring portal from Doctor Strange. Like Wong appears, fucking Arya jumps out through it, stabs the Night King and kills him. Like you don't get the fight between Jon Snow and the Night King that they'd been teasing for 4 seasons now, and it's like they've been staring each other down, giving each other sexy eyes every time they meet, and they never actually do anything about it. Like, God bless. And then Jamie's whole, like, he was reformed. His character developed. He was torn down, built back up, and he became respectable and somebody I really liked. And then for no reason at all, he's like, I'm going back to my sister. And then
but he still didn't respect himself, and he knew that she was the only one that he was worthy of, because he did not think that he had come as far as the audience and as Brienne of Tarth.
It doesn't make sense, though.
So I felt that it was a fitting ending. They came into the world together. They disgustingly spent their lives together, and they went out together.
Awful. Like the rocks fell, and they were perfectly
gonna let her die alone.
No,
I mean that would be a horrific way to die. 100%.
Their deaths, but
I mean, you better hope you get like knocked
portioned
the fuck
together
out.
under some rocks that. All right, like
oh yeah, the rocks. Like there was a pile that was like empty next. Yeah. Okay,
like,
that was silly.
And then Daenerys all of a sudden like just goes genocidal mad woman on everybody, and then not to mention
we're going to talk about that in a little bit though.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just
no. You can keep going.
Okay,
but we're going to go into why she went so berserker.
But you're telling me though, like Daenerys and crew on the dragons didn't see the entire fleet. They just come around the corner and you surprise the freaking dragon. They have air superiority and you surprise them. Like you forgot
Maybe
this
Dokes
entire...
was behind it all. He's like, surprise, motherfucker. I got some dragons.
Flying in air and you don't see this fleet down there below shooting. Like, it just... There's just so much that it was just lazy.
What'd you think of when the dragon burned the throne?
I read the leaks, right? I read leaks going into this.
Why did you do that?
Because I don't know why, but I read it. I was like, but here's the thing. When I read it on Free Folk, and the subreddit that's to this day is burning strong, I was like, there is no way in hell this is real. I was like, that's not actually how this all ends. Oh, it was exactly how this all ended. And I was like, what? And then they banish Jon Snow away.
But that's what he wanted.
No.
He could have waited until the dickless dude just left, and he could have stayed.
Exactly.
But that's what he wanted. He wanted to be with the free folk. He wanted to go find his next free woman.
His whole character development at this point was just, I don't want it. Like, who has a better story than
Bran the Broken? And then he found out she was his aunt.
All right. I'm going to hop off now. Go ahead. Dive into some things because I'm fired up.
So I'll say a couple. Yeah. Okay. So I'll get into the Daenerys thing in a little bit. But when the dragon came in and melted the throne, I actually thought that was very symbolic, because the throne was literally the reason every single person in this show died, whether they wanted the throne or they didn't want the throne. When you play the Game of Thrones, what did Cersei say? It's like, someone's going to die when there you go. Nobody wins when you play the Game of Thrones. And she is correct. And so I actually saw like a lot of symbolism in that, everybody's been fighting over it for so long. And then this depressed dragon goes and melts it. Okay. So first, just kind of like a recap of why the Targaryens fell, because we're going into this.
Are you saying Targaryen or Targaryen?
Targaryens.
Oh, it sounds like you're saying
Targaryens.
It sounds like you're saying the Targaryen.
Is it like monsters all over again? Monsters. Targaryens. Okay. I have it spelled correctly.
You do. That's why I'm confused. I was like, is she saying Targaryen or Hargaryen? I'm like, are you hungry?
So, because we're going to be going into their building up their empire. So this is a reminder of how it did fall. So the dynasty ended with the death of Aerys, the Mad King, during Robert's Rebellion, in which the Targaryens were overthrown and replaced by House Baratheon. Jaime the Kingslayer aided this despite being his Kingsguard. So a reminder of Jaime's speech in the tub with Brienne, and he tells her exactly how it went down, which we never heard before because it didn't sound like he ever really explained the whole thing to anybody else. And he said that, holier than thou Ned Stark wouldn't have listened to him. So the Mad King basically enjoyed burning people alive, and he would do this just for somebody messing up or disagreeing with him. And he genuinely, it was a hobby. And this made people hate him. And as a result, he actually hid wildfire all over King's Landing. And when it was clear that Tywin and the Baratheons had joined together and were about to take over the city, the Mad King demanded that Jaime go kill his father and bring him his head. And when Jaime refused, the Mad King then said, well, we're going to go out and, basically a blaze of glory. We're going to explode all the wildfire and destroy the city, because Jaime thinks that the Mad King really thought that he would rise from the ashes, much like we saw Daenerys do. Daenerys. God, I haven't watched a show in so long. I'm probably going to butcher all these fucking names. And that's when Jaime decided to basically kill him, and he became the Kingslayer / Oath Breaker. It was an insult all of those seasons, but it was from somebody who truly saved the city. And I'm sure that made Jaime bitter and made him more of a villain in the beginning, even when he thought what he was doing was altruistic. And he saved a lot of people. And the Mad King kept saying, burn them all, burn them all. So the Mad King's wife / sister, his wife was his sister,
Roll
and
Tide.
children were also murdered. But of course, 2 surviving children of Aerys II, which was Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen. Viserys, that death was terrible with the gold on his head.
That was
my God.
probably one of the better deaths in this entire series.
But we all hated him. He was a douche
we
and a
hated
half.
him. He was awful. He was pimping his sister out. And then also, if you remember, who was in the very, Khal Drogo?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny how many cameos and people were in this.
Yeah. Especially because, Jason Momoa wasn't in it long either. He really wasn't. But their relationship, God, we could do a whole, that's just like some trauma, like, geez, it was like Stockholm Syndrome. Okay. So, the kids basically fell into exile, or they were taken into exile. They were little, and they resided in the free cities of Essos ever since. And then, of course, you also have Aemon Targaryen, who survived, but he was up at the wall. We don't even know who he is till he's like on his deathbed. But he never seemed crazy at all. But he did, renounce all his inheritance and whatnot. And it did make him sad when he found out basically his nephew and all these children and everything had been murdered. That's when he was talking to Jon Snow. Okay, so why are there no dragons in the beginning of Game of Thrones? Though I think we're going to get some of this cleared up in the prequel. And as I read, it basically looks like in the Dance of Dragons Civil War, the dragons kind of kill each other. So we shall see.
I think we see 9 of the 17 dragons that will appear in this series in the first season, they said.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're each going to have their own little personality, which we kind of saw that with...
that makes sense.
With the 3 dragons, yeah. So obviously... Daenerys is the only surviving Targaryen other than Jon Snow, which we don't know about until the end of the show. And she starts as a fair and understanding leader, and then
it makes no sense. It doesn't make sense how she went evil. It does not make sense.
But it does make sense.
No, it doesn't. Explain. I'm interested to hear.
So I think her downfall is when she burned the guy from Umbrella Academy alive with his dad. And of course, this was Samwell Tarly's brother and father. And then she had that awkward thing where she's like telling Sam, and she acts like she's being all noble, being the one to tell Sam, like, oh shit, I think I killed your brother and your dad. My bad. But they wouldn't bend the knee. I think also her ignoring Tyrion was a sign that she wasn't doing great. And also her believing that she was the true heir and she should take the throne, but then learning that Jon Snow was the true heir and her deciding not to bend the knee. Like she was starting to go off the rails. So all these little things, I think, just kind of, I feel like it was slowly festering. It just wasn't coming out as slow.
I don't agree though. I feel like it just came out of nowhere for me. Like they just it would have made, so I think the payoff is, my whole thing with this is everything was rushed. So they decided to end it at 8 seasons when they probably could have gotten, 2 more seasons, maybe made it 10. So I think the payoff is what everything just happened so fast, I think is my big problem, right?
I agree with that as far as Bran.
Bran, and then even Daenerys. Like if we had seen her going mad longer, it would have made more sense. Whereas to me, it felt like it just came out of nowhere. Like one day she's fine trying to bang Jon, and the next day she's just killing everybody. And so it kind of.
I think she did have little moments here and there.
Yeah, but
they just weren't as pronounced.
I feel like for something this big, they needed to build it up more, so it didn't feel earned, I guess, is my big problem.
No, I get it. And I do understand why you would feel it was rushed. I totally get that completely. But I do think that we saw a little bit more of these, okay, she's a little nuts. And it was like, okay, this was easy to take these little armies or take these little cities. And now she's getting bigger. And I think also when Cersei, didn't do what she said she was going to do, she just lost it. And
I mean, that's fair.
And I mean, we can do the whole incest thing before we go into fun facts. I mean, who doesn't want to talk about incest?
Fun fact, who doesn't love incest?
Woohoo. Let's see, that's a fan theory. Let me go find my incest notes. So we all know incest is bad, but apparently royal people don't. Okay, here we go. Incest. In Game of Thrones, we often hear of the Mad King, and this is King Aerys II Targaryen. I'm sure I'm butchering this. And he was the 16th member of House Targaryen to rule from the Iron Throne. His daughter was Daenerys, aka Khaleesi. So while in the show, most incest we get is between Cersei and Jaime. In the first book, it says, this is the first book, it says, quote, "For centuries the Targaryens had married brother to sister since Aegon the Conqueror had taken his sister to bride. The line must be kept pure. Viserys had told her 1,000 times theirs was the king's blood, the golden blood of old Valyria, the blood of the dragon." Keeping the bloodlines pure is a line we heard from Cersei when defending herself against Ned Stark when he put together that Cersei's kids were Jaime's and not Robert's. In Game of Thrones, we often hear of them. Oh, I already said that. So while George R.R. Martin is definitely out there for some of the shit he wrote, I definitely think he's got a screw loose, a creative screw loose nonetheless. But the whole incest thing is based on history. So you have Royal Egyptians, Royal Portuguese, and many others engaged in this disgusting and revolting practice. However, I think the most popular and on-the-nose royal here is King George III, who is often referred to as the Mad King. And King George is often referred to as a good ruler, despite losing America. And every time when I was reading that, I just kept thinking Hamilton. You'll be back, wait and see.
I've never watched Hamilton.
Oh, wow. I think you're one of the only 5 people in the world that hasn't watched Hamilton. Okay, so during his mad episodes, because he would have episodes of being mad and then he would seem more sane again. So he would write and his sentences would be much longer than when he was well. A sentence containing 400 words and 8 verbs was not unusual. And when ill, he often repeated himself. And while his vocabulary would actually become more complex and creative and colorful, he was still basically showing signs of losing it. And these are symptoms of bipolar disorder. And there are historians who believe his bipolar could have resulted from being inbred. And so bipolar 2, you can have manic episodes and depressed episodes. So she could have lost it with like an episode. So why does marrying your sister cause your kids to have more genetic issues? To quote Jesse Pinkman, science bitch, it's called recessively inherited disorders. So genes come in pairs, half from mom, half from dad. In recessive disorders, a trait will only be passed on if both parents have it, and relatives are more likely to have the same recessive trait. Whereas if I have a recessive bad trait and my non-blood related husband doesn't, then our kids won't get it. So basically the bad genes that cause physical and mental problems get more concentrated over the generations. Mm-hmm. And the Mad King and Khaleesi's mom were siblings. So we got incest on incest, lots of concentrated bad genes and ickiness, even though she is incredibly hot. My last thing about incest, and then I will stop. My daughter told me I had to throw this one in. So Charles Darwin, the father of evolution, ironically married his first cousin, and many of their children had health issues, which he believed was because their parents were cousins. Then one of their sons married his cousin, despite his father saying cousins marrying is bad for genes.
This man took like science to the next level. He had a theory and he put it to the test.
Well, sadly, he did not realize the theory until they had like 15 kids, though. And only, I don't know.
Oh, my God.
There was a lot
this
of that.
economy?
So if you look at that and you look at, because King George is not referred to as like a bad king, but he would have episodes. So he wasn't always like, because Daenerys was very understanding, very reasonable, and then like not.
They didn't have therapists back then.
Or a medication, yeah.
Well, I feel like they had some drugs, but no therapy.
They did have some drugs in the show.
They did. So, well...
Why don't you give us some fun facts shake off the incest?
Fun facts. You made out with your sister, man.
Ew.
Anyways, first season of Game of Thrones was in post-production for 17 weeks, and the 8th season took a year. Peter Dinklage didn't want the role right away. He actually had one hesitation because of the fantasy genre. He told, "I didn't really want a long beard and pointy shoes," he said in a Reddit AMA. D&D, who I'm not going to give credit to their actual names, assured him that the character wasn't this, and they told him about his complexity, the fact that he wasn't a hero or a villain. He was a womanizer and a drinker, and they painted a flaw and a beautiful portrait of him, so he signed on until the last season where they turned him into a stupid fool that did things for no reason. 33 nude scenes are in season 1, 6 in season 7. 4,000 gallons of fake blood were used for the Red Wedding. The drummer for Coldplay was a musical performer at Joffrey's wedding. Aaron Rodgers was actually in the burning of the last burning. I forget the name of the fucking city.
He was in Game of Thrones.
Aaron Rodgers was in the final season when Daenerys went scorched earth on everybody. When she was burning everybody, he was actually like a monk or somebody. So after Joffrey left the show, George R.R. Martin sent him a letter saying, "Congratulations on your marvelous performance. Everybody hates you now." Sophie Turner actually adopted her direwolf. Not actually as big as portrayed. Obviously, there was CGI, but Theon Greyjoy was pranked with a fake script where Bronn stabs him and takes back Winterfell. They then asked if he would come back as a zombie. That probably would have been a lot better than what we actually got. So anyways, this was Samwell Tarly's.
I think that was when right after Theon took over Winterfell.
That would have made a lot of sense. So this was,
and he was going to say, "It's my Winterfell now, bitch."
First time ever acting professionally. So that was kind of cool. He's actually been in a lot of stuff since then. And so how do you feel overall about the ending of the show?
I walked away not feeling completely satisfied, but not hating it either. So I guess I walked away a little indifferent. Like when I walked away from Dexter, I felt like, what the fuck was that? What did I just watch? Like, how did a show this amazing end like that? But I will say Dexter New Blood, I did not love the ending again, but I feel better about the show after the new one. And so I'm hoping the prequel does that.
Yeah.
Like maybe fills in some blanks or something. But I mean, it was literally the happiest ending you could have imagined Game of Thrones getting.
I guess there was no real way to give anybody a happy ending. It's Game of Thrones. Like the happy endings shouldn't exist.
Yeah. We need a brand prequel or a brand spinoff or something. And that's why I was hoping George R.R. Martin would finish the books, because because there are times I feel like where, okay, like Ready Player One is a good example. I read the book and then I watched the movie, and I felt like if I hadn't read the book, some of the stuff wouldn't have made as much sense. And so you could still follow the movie, but just things were missing. And I feel like that's what was happening here, because the whole brand thing, like,
just
what story did Tyrion read?
Who has a better story? Bran literally wasn't in an entire season of Game of Thrones. Like, he did not appear in the entirety of one season of Game of Thrones. So you're telling me that he was the most important, made sense character for the Iron Throne at that point? Like, what? It makes no sense. And they turned Tyrion into a fool. They turned kind of everybody. Like, I was disappointed. I'm still very disappointed. I'm going to go into House of the Dragon with a very open mind and optimistic outlook on it, but I can't tell you if I'm excited or not for it. I'm hurt. I'm hurt.
You're still recovering. It's been traumatic. Well, hopefully House of Dragon will be healing.
I hope it's good. I like Matt Smith. I mean, the trailers for House of Dragon looks really freaking good. Like it looks great. And I hope they...
Yeah, but I don't trust trailers anymore.
I mean, who can? But I honestly believe that they might have learned a lesson, maybe, hopefully, sort of, from the things that they've went through.
I mean, the Dexter writers learned half a lesson.
I still never watched that season, actually, funny enough.
It's definitely worth watching. You should watch it this Christmas.
Christmas? Okay.
Because it's Christmas the whole show.
Oh, I was like, what?
I liked that, like, because my husband and I watched it like Sunday mornings, like, and because they have Christmas decorations in the show and it's snowing, and like the last episode I think takes place on Christmas morning, maybe second to last. But it was nice. We were watching in our living room with a Christmas tree, watching Dexter murder people. It was amazing.
Well, I will say that our friend Red Fox, he said that it actually wasn't as bad as we all made it out to be. Everything was just, the problem was it was just fine. Whereas the rest of the series was great. So
we all also had very high expectations.
Right. I mean, it was hard not to. How could you not? Yeah. So from there, we had a couple other folks kind of chime in and pretty much say the same. Like our friend Maynard Brewer, he was like, I'm done with this. I can never watch this again. Melanin B. Geekin pretty much said that it made no sense for Arya to be the one to kill the Night King, and it made no sense for the long night to be concluded in one night. And all that build up for it to end and not matter in the time it took over one night shift. So again, very, very true for sure.
Do you think a time jump would have helped?
I don't think a time jump. They could have made it 2 episodes. Like the long night could have been 2 episodes potentially. But
like when you hear in the past, like the long night, it was like years.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know what would have fixed it. But maybe first of all, be able to see it. That would have been helpful. Be able to see this long night. But
is there anyone out here there that didn't check the brightness on their TV that night?
Everybody was like, what the hell is going on?
It was like when Sopranos, I know you didn't watch Sopranos, but like the way Sopranos ended, the site crashed because everybody thought their HBO went out because of how they ended the show.
Yeah. How could you not though? Again, like how do you not?
Yeah. I really think if they had gone more into Bran, it's like everybody had their theories about who Jon Snow really was, and those theories proved to be true. And then everybody had these theories about Bran, and they never confirmed or denied them. We never got anything. And the whole like Hodor thing, like clearly Bran has some sort of time traveling abilities. Right. And like, did he make Hodor the way he is? Was Hodor...
Well, he did
more,
I guess. Hodor is pretty fucked up because of Bran, so who went back in time and warged and everything. So it was like, again, Bran's not a good person. So I actually have a couple other people that did chime in. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it. I have one fan theory I found on the internet that I'll read at the end of that. But yeah, go for it.
So Wave 5 Media said that they're pretty excited to jump back into the world of Westeros. The last 2 seasons of the show were definitely terrible, but being a fan of the books and lore itself, they're interested in seeing what they do with further spin-offs. Cult Connection said one of the very few series that were good enough to make me watch many episodes multiple times. Chris from Geek Peak said that he's hyped, but the real question, which show is going to be better? House of the Dragon or Rings of Power? Listen here, brother.
With House of Dragon.
It's Rings of Power. First and foremost. All right. It's Rings of Power. So what was your fan theory as we wrap up this episode?
So this is an article from The Wrap and discussed a few fan theories. And one was that Bran's whispers are what drove the Mad King to madness. Because we all know in Westeros lore, the campaign to depose the Targaryens began when he killed Ned Stark's father and brother, Rickard and Brandon, with fire. Arys was known for repeatedly saying, "Burn them all." So according to the theory, the reason why he kept repeating that is because Bran traveled back and tried to warn him of approaching White Walkers. Instead, the whispers only heightened his already uncontrollable paranoia, probably because he was inbred, leading him to kill the Starks and start the cycle of warfare that still continues in Westeros. I don't really like that theory. I think that's a bit whatever. But some other theories suggest that Bran has had an even greater impact on the past because he shares his name with many other Brandon Starks throughout the history. I know we all have heard those theories. The most famous of these is Bran the Builder, the architect of the wall. One fan on subreddit said, A Song of Ice and Fire suggests that all the great achievements by these Brans were made possible because the current Bran influenced them through whispers. So yeah, if he really can do the whole Hodor thing and travel through time, why would that be the only time that he does it? Why wouldn't he? Or maybe he doesn't because he did try to warn somebody and ended up backfiring. But then you go into the whole time travel of like, are you doing Back to the Future time travel? Are you doing Marvel time travel?
Good question. Good question. I have no idea. Nobody knows. So let's hope that House of the Dragon turns out to be really good. I hope it does. I know you hope it does. I know everybody hopes it does. It premieres August 21st. So as we wrap this up, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, next week we are going to have Task from Twitter. You might know him on Twitter. He is a comic book writer, comic book creator. He's a really cool dude, has a lot to say about Marvel and things. So he's going to be on our episode next week where we do our pre-episode for She-Hulk. So look forward to that happening. As always, join our Patreon, patreon.com/HopsGeekNews. Go ahead and join, support us any way we can. We will be at FanX Salt Lake Comic-Con, hopefully bringing you a lot of great stuff from that. So until next week, we'll see you later, dudes. Cowabunga.